as of now. Before we begin, a land acknowledgement. Ottawa is built on unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage au peuple et au territoire de la nation Anishinaabe Algonquine. La ville d'Ottawa rend hommage à toute la Première Nation, à tous les Inuits et à tous les Métis, de même qu'aux précieuses contributions passées et présentes à cette terre. We wish also to acknowledge that Councillor Curry will be joining us later tonight. So we will now move to the order of the day. I will briefly share my screen here. Being clear. All right. Our evening will commence with a brief presentation by the Ward 4 Kanata North staff. This will be led by my colleague, Nick Leonard. The presentation will provide background on the program's legislative history, its conception, and arriving at the stage we are currently at. Second, we will present the consultation the councillor's office has planned, including the consultation meeting dates, the survey vote, and other ways to share your thoughts and opinions. Third, city staff from the Department for Finance Services will discuss how the levy is charged. This will be led by Diane Lawson from the Finance Services Department. After the dates for the consultation period have been reviewed and the tax levy overseen, we will turn to GDG Environment to provide a presentation of their work. GDG Environment has delivered the previous two programs and has once more been selected as the preferred proponent to deliver the program. Once the presentation is complete, we will turn to, we'll open the floor up for comments and questions. Individuals wishing to ask a question or make a comment can use the raise hand function or submit questions to myself in the chat. Once queued, you'll be prompted to unmute yourself and given 3 minutes to ask a question, make a comment, or otherwise participate. My colleague Nick will raise his hand at 1 minute and verbally notify you at 30 seconds. You can also ask questions through the comment section, which will be monitored throughout the meeting and ask intermittently. I'll now turn the presentation over to my colleague Nick.
Thank you, Andrew. We will now look to the background of the project and program. In February 2016, Ottawa City Council considered and approved an area-specific levy in order to administer the Kanata North Nuisance Mosquito program, as well as a 3-year research program. In February 2020, following the recommendation of the Councillor's office, Ottawa City Council received the community-wide vote conducted and approved the continuation of the Kanata North Mosquito Nuisance Program special levy from 2000 through 2023. On December 5th, 2023, Council approved our office's request to conduct a community-wide vote in order to determine support for continuation of the Kanata North Nuisance Mosquito Control Program and implement an area-specific levy. This will figure into our office's consultation and subsequently help formulate a recommendation to Council regarding the program. The consultation period we have designed is 4-pronged. It will first consist of public meetings. The first meeting is the meeting we're currently in, held tonight. It is virtual and recorded and will be available on our office's YouTube page later this evening. The second meeting, held exclusively in person, will take place at 7 p.m. on January 15th, 2024 at Richcraft Recreation Complex in the Minto Community Room. Following our public meetings, the first of which we are currently in tonight, a voting period will commence in which properties within Ward 4 can vote to express support or opposition of an area-specific levy supporting the continuation of the Nuisance Mosquito Control Program. Ward 4 properties will receive a mail-out with instructions on how to submit their vote on Engage Ottawa. Voting on the webpage opens January 16th, 2024. Supplementing our public meetings and community survey vote will be an Engage Ottawa page in which residents and community members can submit comments, questions, and inquiries about the program. In order to facilitate further public engagement, our office will be holding open houses over the coming weeks in which residents and community members may submit comments, ask questions, and request additional support for anything program related. As our section of the presentation closes, I will reemphasize that tonight we are at the public meeting step in the timeline presented, as signified by the red public meeting on the poster you see in front of you. I will now pass our presentation over to Diane Lawson from Finance Services Department at the City of Ottawa to present and discuss how the area-specific levy is charged.
Great. So one moment and I'll pull up Finance Services presentation. Over to you, Diane.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Diane Lawson, and I'm here tonight to present on behalf of Revenue Services. The Kanata North Mosquito Nuisance Program is a special area levy billed on the annual property tax bill for properties located in Ward 4, Kanata North. The city bills and collects the special area rate pursuant to sections 312 and 326 of the Municipal Act, which states that the city may establish one or more special service areas and levy one or more special service area levies. Next slide, please. How are the rates calculated? Revenue Services is provided with the total amount to collect, which is the annual contract price. Using the annual contract price and the property assessment total for Ward 4, the residential rate is determined. Tax rates for all other property classes are calculated by multiplying the residential tax rate by the tax ratios for each class. The sum total of all the taxes calculated for all tax classes would be equal to the annual contract price, ensuring that the levy collected covers the cost of the contract. This is the same calculation that has been used for the MMP levy for the prior tax years and any other levy on the tax bill. Rates are approved by council annually in May with the approval of all annual tax rate bylaws. Next slide, please. How is your share calculated? There are two components used to calculate the amount you pay for the Kanata North Mosquito Program: the assessed value of your property and the special levy tax rate. The assessment value and tax class of a property is determined by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, and the city does not determine assessment values. Tax rates are determined through calculations which involve the annual levy requirement, which is the approved contract price in the report to council in this case, the total current value assessment by class, and tax policy effects. So your share is calculated using the following formula per tax class: the assessed value times the Kanata North Mosquito Program tax rate equals your share of the Kanata North Mosquito Program. Next slide, please. And where do you find this charge on your tax bill? This slide shows a sample tax bill, and you can see highlighted in yellow is where you'll find the details of the Kanata North Mosquito Program charge for your property. Next slide, please. On this slide, we've zoomed in to show where you will find the assessment tax class and assessment value, in addition to the tax rate and the total annual charge. This example shows an average residential property assessed at $430,000 would pay approximately $20. Next slide, please. More information on municipal taxation and tax policy can be found on our tax policy page. If there are any additional questions, you can also submit inquiries through your councillor office, which will be directed on to us for a response. Thank you.
Thank you. So that completes the presentation by Finance Services, and we will now pass it over to Mark Ardis from GDG to present the program itself and the research GDG has previously conducted.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for participating at the public consultation. So as mentioned by Andrew, I'm Mark Artis. I'm a vector biologist at GDG Environment. A little bit about myself. I've worked with GDG for, it's going to be 19 years now. I've managed operations for control of West Nile virus programs throughout the province of Ontario, and some nuisance mosquito control programs from all the way from Windsor in southern Ontario all the way to Labrador City in Newfoundland, Labrador. So today I'm going to present about the biological nuisance control program in Kanata North, and I'll be going over the following. So I'll do a brief overview of GDG Environment, present the benefits of the program to the community, speak about the BTI products and the environmental regulations and environmental concerns about such programs. And then I'll go over the steps of the program. So just discuss how we go about doing our treatments and how we record all of our work, and to make sure that we respect all the legislation that's in place to make sure that we do the program correctly. And then after that, I believe Andrew will take over and we'll start the question and comments period. So a little bit about GDG Environment. So we have more than 35 years of experience. The company was started in 1984 by a group of biologists from the Université de Trois-Rivières in Quebec. And the group of biologists worked to register BTI in Canada with the, at the time it was owned by Abbott Laboratories. And since then, they've been working in offering municipal control programs throughout the province of Quebec, Ontario, and the Maritimes. So we have over 40 municipal clients. In peak season, we have over 300 employees. And for our operations, we have helicopters at our disposal, drones, as well as a fleet of about 200 vehicles. Other services that we offer, there's more than what's displayed on here now, but we do emerald ash borer control. We manufacture a product called Fraxi Protect, which is a Beauveria bassiana base control method for emerald ash borer. It's a fungus that will attack the adult emerald ash borer. So it's a new product that's been out since 2022. And we're using it in quite a few municipalities in Quebec where emerald ash borer is still an emerging issue. We also do invasive plant control. We manufacture a product for invasive plant control. Again, it's an alternative to chemicals. It's a salt-based product for controlling weeds such as giant hogweed, ragweed, and so forth. And we've offered services in spruce budworm programs as well, in forestry. So the benefits of a program. So why a program in Canada, in Kanata? So one of the major reasons is to have a better quality of life outdoors. So when in 2016, well, in 2015, let's say, that's when we started meeting with Kanata North Councillor at the time, Marianne Wilkinson. There was quite a few citizens and some citizen associations that were concerned about the amount of mosquitoes that were present in their neighborhood. They were not able to go outside. They were not able to enjoy their backyards. They had to run into their houses when they would put out the garbage and so forth. So we decided in 2015 to install traps, monitor the issue, and we found out that in Kanata North, we have a certain species of mosquitoes called Ochlortatus trivitatus, which is a floodwater mosquito. And I'll go more into the biology of mosquitoes in the next following slides. But this is why Kanata North sort of is different than other wards in the City of Ottawa. Also, one of the benefits is that you get to use less insect repellents on your skin. We also get to reduce the use of adulticide treatments in the community. So in Ontario, individual property owners are allowed to have their properties sprayed with chemical products, adulticides we call them, so permethrin or garlic-based oils, and these are broad spectrum insecticides, so they impact many more insects. They'll impact bees, butterflies, beetles, and so forth. So the benefit of having a biological control program using BTI is that we have less of these chemicals in our neighborhood. So how do we go about, how is this possible? So we use, as I mentioned, we use a biorational larvicide called BTI. BTI stands for Bacillus thuringiensis australiensis, and it's an effective solution to reducing mosquito populations. It is a bacteria that we find naturally in the soil. We can offer up to an 80% nuisance reduction in mosquito populations. It doesn't bioaccumulate in the environment. It biodegrades fairly rapidly under UV rays. So within 30 to 48 hours, it'll biodegrade, and there is no residual effect. So a little bit about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are aquatic insects. They develop in standing water, and they really like non-permanent standing water. So standing water that'll eventually dry out. So we call those ephemeral pools or ephemeral ponds. So the larvae, so the way it works is the female mosquito. She lays the eggs. She'll lay the eggs in the mud. So it's not necessarily going to be in the water. She'll lay it in moist soil. And then when we have a flood event or snow melt or a rainfall event, and the water pools, eventually the eggs will hatch, turn into larvae, and this is an aquatic stage. And this is when we control them. We control them when they're in their aquatic stage, when they're larvae. So I'll just use my pointer here. There we go. So this is the larval stage, and we have 4 instar levels. So 4 stages in the larval form. So first instar, second instar, third instar, fourth instar, and then we have the pupal stage. Pupal stage is when the larvae will go through metamorphosis and turn into an adult mosquito. So in this stage, the pupae no longer feeds. And the way that BTI works is the larvae needs to eat BTI. It needs to ingest the BTI in order for it to be effective. And the way BTI works is, so the product that we spray or that we apply in the water is not necessarily it's not a live bacteria, but it is the what we call a cryprotein or a protein crystal that is produced by the bacteria. And the protein crystal has to be dissolved in order for the toxic cryproteins to then be effective. And it's the alkaline pH, so the high pH of the digestive system of the larvae that will activate the toxins. And for this reason, because mosquitoes are blood feeding, they're one of the few insects out there that have a high pH digestive tract. So for example, us mammals, we have an acidic digestive tract. In the case of mosquitoes, they have a alkaline digestive tract, so the opposite. So just a little bit more about mosquitoes. And in Kanata North, we did, like I mentioned, we did some surveys to have a clear idea of what types of mosquitoes we have. What is the seasonality of the mosquitoes? When is the major issue? When is the major nuisance occurring? And what we found is that in Kanata North, we have about 40 species of mosquitoes. And the primary cause of nuisance, as I mentioned, is a floodwater mosquito called Ochlorotatus tributatus. And this mosquito is fairly new to the area. We started finding it in Ottawa, in the Ottawa region, around 2011, and it's different than other mosquitoes. It likes, like I said, it's a floodwater mosquito, but it likes to develop in floodplains. So for the example, in Kanata North, it's the Carp River floodplain. When the Carp River overflows its banks, we get some pooling of water along the edge, And then after a while, that pool of water starts to dry out. And as it dries out, the eggs will hatch, and then we have a generation of Ohlchloratatus tributatus. And as you know, it doesn't take much rain for the Carp River to overflow its banks. Over time, we've started to find out that 5 millimeters of rain is enough to trigger a new generation of Ohlchloratatus tributatus, and that's why we have our treatments throughout the season using either the helicopter or drones. So how do we go about this? So a little bit about mosquito population dynamics. We have spring mosquitoes that develop in April, May. And then we have our floodwater mosquitoes and our summer mosquitoes that develop mid-May all the way into September. This is an example of mosquito population dynamics without a treatment program. So what we have down here is the larval populations. So in April, eggs start to hatch, then the larval population increases. And then as the larval population increases, we start to have adults emerge. And as the adults emerge, we get some bioaccumulation of different species over time. And then so this is the overall mosquito population. So without a control program controlling the larvae, we get a buildup of adults. And depending on temperature and depending on rain patterns, we can have a bioaccumulation of multi generations of mosquitoes flying around. So with a mosquito program in place using BTI, we're able to reduce the larval populations, and then that translates into lower adult populations. And so in April, we'll have our springtime control programs dealing with snowmelt mosquitoes. Some springtime mosquitoes can live up to 3 months as adults, so it's a crucial treatment period that's very important. And then throughout the summer season, then it's based on rainfall events. So when we have frequent rainfalls like we've had in the past few years, we have to increase our frequency of treatments with BTI. So there are alternatives to biorational larvicides. There is other products out there. I mentioned chemical control, and this is just like a little matrix to evaluate, like, what is the best alternative, what is the best method. So doing nothing, it will have a negative impact on our health, on our well-being, on our quality of life. Chemical control is very effective at reducing mosquito populations. However, they are broad spectrum insecticides, so they do have an impact on other insects and the environmental surroundings. And some are harsh chemicals that can have an impact on our health. There is drainage that can also be done. Drainage can be fairly effective. Draining some of the standing water sites that will have an impact on the environmental surroundings. You're destroying habitats. It does though have a benefit though for quality of life. Introducing predators. That's another good way, but and it has a positive impact on the environment. We've heard of traps. We've designed traps as well. Traps will work. They're fairly effective. However, the amount of traps required to control mosquitoes would be enormous. So it's not the best method out there. And then there's personal protection, such as using DEET or picaridin products. We recommend using that. But then a BTI is one of the best community approaches to controlling mosquitoes. It means that you can benefit it at your house, you can benefit it at the soccer field, at the baseball field. It's a community-wide program. Okay, so impacts of biological control programs or nuisance control programs on the environment. I do want to touch upon it. One of the things that we hear is that it will have people are worried about us removing food from the food web. And one of the important things to note is that mosquitoes are not naturally a keystone species in the food web. They're not necessary. There's quite a lot of other insects that are available, other aquatic insects that remain, that are food for our insectivorous birds, our amphibians, bats, and fish. And so removing mosquitoes is about removing maybe at most 3% of their biomass in terms of food. That's what some of the research has showed. And then what we also find is that mosquitoes are not stable insect populations for insectivorous birds and insectivorous predators to depend on. We can have a dry spring or a dry winter where it translate into a dry spring where we don't have any standing water, or we don't have much standing water, and that means that the mosquito populations are very low. We can have a drought. We can have a summer drought period or a dry summer. That will mean that mosquito populations will be very low. So mosquito populations are not stable populations, and for that reason, they're not very much depended on for the diet of insectivorous predators. Does BTI affect honeybees? The answer is no. There's been research done where they've applied BTI onto bees to see if there's any impact on the bees' behavior or on the bees' overall health. And what they found is there's no impact. And to reassure people, we don't apply BTI to flowers or anything. We apply it to standing water. So usually it's not really in the area where they're foraging. So that's also another reassurance for that. Okay, so amphibians. There hasn't been any direct effects observed on amphibians. There has been research done. However, there hasn't been any direct effects found with operational application rates. So one of the great things about BTI is that mosquitoes are highly sensitive to BTI. So it doesn't take much BTI to impact the mosquito. So it doesn't take much BTI, so we don't use a lot. So for example, to treat the size of a breeding site or a development site, the size of a football field, we'll only use about 500 milliliters. So it doesn't use much product. And what they found is that at those application rates, there's minimal impact on amphibians and other non-target organisms. And that's something that I'll touch upon after about the research that's being done by the University of Ottawa. Okay, so our program is done in 4 easy steps. In the spring, we start with monitoring. We'll have a team of biologists out in the field. Our technicians will go out, they'll sample, then determine where everything is happening. So they want to identify where the larvae is developing. We want to determine if egg hatch has started. And then after that, we map out what we're seeing in the field. So these are examples of maps. So what we're looking at is we'll determine, okay, what instar are they at? When we're at the third and second instar, or second and third instar, that's when we'll start doing our treatments. Because if we start too early, we'll probably miss some of the egg hatch, and then because BTI doesn't last in the environment, eggs that hatch a little later, they'll actually develop into adults. So we have to treat at the proper window, or else we miss the treatment. This is an example of the work that we've done over time. We have to map all of our work. And so different colors have different, mean different things. So for example, everything you see in red is what we do by drone or by helicopter, and the rest we do on foot or by vehicle. So we have ditches and so forth. We can see the difference. When we first started, this is what we had mapped. When we ended in 2019, this is where our map ended up looking like. We have to identify all of these breeding sites, find them to improve the overall results. In 2024, we've increased our surface area to go further up towards carp, because we're noticing that we're getting drift populations of Trivitatis flying into Kanata from further north. So those are some of the steps that we've taken to improve the program. And we've also that's one of the reasons why there was a price difference as well in between the years, in between the 2020 the prior program to this program. This is an example of our monitoring. We go out, this is actually like our GPS tracing. We use ESRI data collecting tools, and this is our data input. Each symbol has a different meaning. So for example, here we're finding 1 to 2nd instars, and then here we're finding 1 to 3rd instars. So it means that we're starting to get towards the need of treatment. Communication, in the spring, we will send out letters to property owners where we have standing water and that we know we need to access. We have to get their permission to treat on their properties. So we send out a letter to all these property owners. We also communicate and put out pesticide notices in the newspapers. We'll put up signage as well at the parks just to let people know within 24 hours we'll be treating by air, and communicate as well on social media about about when we're doing our treatments, conducting our treatments. This is what we look like in the field. This is what our staff looks like. They have a backpack sprayer. This is an example of ground treatments. This is another type of backpack sprayer using a granular formulation that we use for standing water for dense vegetation, and then our helicopter as well. This is an example. We capture all the data as we're treating. So this is flight lines, the gold lines here, and they're precise. They're each spaced out at, I believe it's 20 meters. So we do transects across the area to make sure that it's well treated. And then as well on foot, we do transects on foot to cover the area for treating. We analyze our data as well, and we collect larvae and we collect adult mosquitoes. They get sent to our lab. We have a taxonomy lab, but the data is also used to make sure and check the quality of the treatment. So after an area is treated, 48 hours, we'll go in, make sure that the larvae are indeed dead, and that we get 100% mortality. If a larvae is not dead, then we'll assess and see what could be the reason for that. Quality control, so we do some trapping as well. We have traps set out throughout the Kanata North program. We monitor the populations, and we'll react based on or we'll change some treatment strategies based on what we're finding in the adult mosquito population. A little bit about the research component. University of Ottawa is going to be conducting the research. Historically, from 2016 to 2018, the research looked at chironomids. Chironomids are closely related insects to mosquitoes, and they are a keystone species. So we wanted to analyze and see if BTI did affect chironomids at the application rates that we use. And what we found is there was no significant difference between treated areas and untreated areas in terms of quantity of chironomids studied. From 2020 to 23, the research focused on amphibians, and what they studied was the impact of cryoproteins once they're in the environment. And what they found is that the operational application rates of BTI had minimal impact on 3 species of Canadian amphibians. At operational application rates, no significant physiological differences occurred. At higher application rates, so when we're about 10 to 16 times the application rate that we're allowed to use, at higher rates, some physiological differences were observed. And for that reason, the 2024 and 2026 research will continue to be focused on amphibians so that they can understand the sublethal effects to ensure that our operations do not impact the local frog populations. So because we saw some differences, some morphological or physiological differences at higher application rates, well, let's study and make sure that there's no sublethal effects at the operational application rates. So what they will do is study study and analyze the impact of BTI on the endocrine system of frogs to make sure that BTI, to assess if BTI plays a significant role in metabolic disruption at operational application rates. And the 3 species that they're going to look at is the chorus frog, the wood frog, and the leopard frog. Chorus frog is a threatened species, so it's important to get a portrait of what BTI could be doing there. And the research is done on mature and immature frogs, so tadpoles and adult frogs. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So yeah, you can unshare. We'll open up
There we go.
Thank you. So we'll open up the floor for questions, comments. I'll just repeat what I mentioned earlier for those who maybe joined a little bit later. We began the meeting with a brief introduction by the Councillor's office regarding the legislative aspect of the program, followed by a presentation by Finance Services on how the proposed levy would be charged. GDG, the preferred proponent, just presented its program, and we will now open the floor up to questions. A reminder, individuals wishing to ask a question or make a comment can use the raise hand function or submit questions to me in the chat. Once queued, you will be prompted to unmute yourselves and given 3 minutes to formulate a question, make a comment, or otherwise participate. You can also ask questions through the comment section, which will be monitored throughout the meeting and asked intermittently. So I will begin with a submitted chat question to me. Is it possible to request that certain areas be sprayed? There's standing water behind our property, and as a result are always bombarded with mosquitoes in the spring. This is from Veronique. Mark, maybe to you.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have in the communication slide, I should mention, we have a mosquito hotline, and that phone number is usually posted on Councillor Curry's newsletter. So if you do have any issues with mosquitoes, or you see an area that we've missed, you can call that phone number. Our receptionist will take your call. She enters it into our S3 dispatch system, and then it's dispatched to our local team, who will then go and monitor it. So they usually try to go monitor it within, or investigate within 48 hours.
Great, thank you. She very much appreciates the answer. Yeah, so anybody who wishes to ask a question, you can use the raise hand function. It's right where the reactions icon is at the bottom, or you can submit a question in the chat. Jasmine Corluca. You've been prompted to unmute. You had it. No. You had it for a second. Okay, while we figure out Jasmine's technical issue, I have another question here in the chat from Yvonne Dizzy. Maybe to Mark once more. Why were there so many more insects at the South Marsh Highlands in 2023 as compared to 2022?
So yeah, so mosquitoes are very rain dependent, as I mentioned. We had a lot of frequent rains in 2023. It's not necessarily has to do with the amount of rain, it has to do with the frequency of rain and how many times we need to go out and do treatments. So in the South Marsh Highlands themselves, we will treat mosquitoes. We do treat the mosquitoes in there, but because South Marsh Islands is right on the border of where we're offering or where we is right on the border of the resident, it's like on the outside border of the treatment zone. There's quite a few mosquitoes that are flying in from the north and the west of South Marsh Islands. So it's like our most western extreme of treatments for the Kanata North program. So South Marsh Highlands itself does have nuisance once you're in the forest there.
Great, thank you. We're still trying to figure out the issue with Jasmine. Does anybody else maybe have questions regarding the program, the levy, or anything else related? No. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take the opportunity to share with all the further engagement opportunities that we have planned. Love it. So, just to mention to everybody how the next few weeks will proceed. On Monday, we will be holding this upcoming Monday, we will be holding an in-person consultation at the Ridgecraft Center in Kanata. Individuals can also participate and submit comments at the following email or by phoning the following number. There will also be information on the Engage Ottawa page regarding the program. The presentations will be made available, and so too will the recording. Okay, here there is a question for I think Diane from Charlotte Gadon. Actually, this is a question for the office. Can renters, that is, I mean, tenants, vote, or is it just for homeowners? So consistent with past practice, the survey vote is directed to homeowners' properties, and that remains in this consultation as well. To account for consultation of the non-homeowners, we have endeavored to hold consultations such as these to establish the Engage page in which comments can be submitted, and to hold open houses in which residents, non-homeowner residents, can also participate and share their opinions, very much in the spirit of other staff reports where in particular stakeholder groups may be established, but other avenues of participation exist nonetheless. Okay. So that's for you, Charlotte. Any other questions? Okay, so Jasmine's told us that her question has been asked. Yeah, so just a reminder of how the future consultation will work over the following weeks. And yeah, we'll stay on for a little bit longer in the event that there are questions, but otherwise, that concludes the meeting. Thank you all so much for coming out.
Sorry, Andrew. I just wanted to take the time just to thank everyone, but also remind that there is an in-person meeting on the 15th of January at the Ridgecraft complex.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, we mentioned that. Yeah, we mentioned
Okay. Perfect.
that. Thank you all very much. Just the comments and whatnot. Okay.
One question.
So yeah, there is a question here from Carolyn. I'll stay on for you. So when/where is the vote? The vote will be online. So you will get a ballot with an identifier. And this will allow you to enter into the Engage Ottawa page and submit a vote. The instructions will all be included there about how to proceed with the vote. So that's for you, Carolyn. Yeah, sorry, Robert.
You just answered exactly what my question was, so it's
Sounds
fine.
good. Sounds good. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, yeah, we'll conclude the meeting. Thank you all. I'll end the recording here.